Hey y'all, how are you doing? I'm great. Thank you so much for asking. It's me, Kim, and I'm back for another video. Today, I am talking to CiCi Battle. I followed her work online for a minute. I just think she's a really compelling voice. So let's welcome her to the platform.
Hey.
Hi, CiCi. How are you?
Good. I love that we're matching, giving white, giving
I
clarity, giving Beyonce Renaissance summer. I'm here for it.
honestly just like keeping it like low key, like
Mhm.
simple, paring things down. I feel like that's the vibe that I'm into right now. Okay, but speaking of that, like how has your pandemic been? How have like the last 18 months been for you?
Ooh, we going straight in.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I feel like 2022 feels a lot like 2020 in the sense that I am learning deep lessons about myself, about my capacity. I'm craving more. I'm more of a hermit than I was in 2021. The world feels increasingly heavy and tense. And I'm in this place where I'm being forced with real decisions to fight for my joy by any means. I remember 2020 when the pandemic first shut down and it was March and everyone was like, "Oh my god, I can't wait to get back outside." And I was like, "Why are y'all so pressed to be around strangers?" I feel the exact same way right now. Monkeypox is in the streets on full effect. And y'all still pressed to be outside with a whole bunch of strangers. So I'm just in this mode again where I'm fighting for my joy, fighting for my sanity, monitoring what I'm watching, who I'm around, and yeah, just trying to be more whole than I was last year. That's the mission.
Yeah, I actually really feel you on this being the reprise of 2020. But I also feel like people are worse off than they were in 2020. I mean, like mentally, like,
Okay,
like
go
I
there,
I
go there.
think that that extended period of isolation, if you
Mhm.
followed the protocols, and economic downturn and fear, like people are not doing well mentally. And I
Agreed.
do I do think that that contributes to people being like, well, I don't care like about monkeypox. I don't care about COVID. I'm just going to get outside because I need to be near people. And I am more tempted to blame institutional failure
Sure.
than I am to blame individuals because we're just not getting any. There's no directives. There's no prevention.
Oh, for sure. I think the folks that I'm thinking about that want to be around strangers are a particular bunch of people that have access to a lot of privilege and all of the
Yeah.
things. I'm definitely not talking about the vast majority. And I agree. I really believe that we are unwell. I believe that our society, preemptively forced us to go back to normal with people being unwell. And then we have all of the things that are happening. I think what I'm feeling, why I said I'm in a place where I'm fighting for my joy. I think most people are in that place. To your point, folks are like, I'm gonna do what I need to do, but it's more about a sobering moment of like the getting better that I was hoping for in 2020. 2 years later, I don't actually see it. So it's a personal mandate of like, okay, so now that you see this, how are you gonna fight for your joy? Now that you see that they're trying to push you back in the office, they're trying to do this, what are you gonna do? Because you can't keep waiting on things to get better outside of you. What is your internal work and consciousness going to be? I think that's what I was trying
Yeah.
to.
Oh, I think that this is so spot on where people are too. I remember that, what did I call it? I called it vaccine optimism that I felt in
That's
April, like
yes,
2021, where
yes.
I had just been vaccinated and like people who wanted to, the people who wanted to were getting vaccinated. And it was like,
Mhm,
okay, we're about to start life again and we're going to be
mhm,
great and troubles are
mhm,
gone and we're hanging
mhm.
out.
Yep.
And to think about more than a year later, the fact that we're actually worse, like I actually feel worse about life and being outside and the state of the world than I did a year and like 3 or 4 months ago. It is really depressing.
Yes, that and it's
And
weird because as someone who's an optimist, I'm a whole Sagittarius. Like I'm always like, well, da, da, da. No matter what I say, I think my body knows what it's experiencing. You feel what I'm saying? Like, oh, it's
yeah.
gonna be great, but your body is like, but sis, like, I mean, you don't feel safe. I have social anxiety now. Like, I'm frustrated when I don't see people with masks on.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the elderly that I see out. Like, it's a hyper state of awareness and being. And yeah, I could go on.
Yeah. Okay. And I've also seen you continuing this mission that you've been on about frolic culture, right? Speaking
Yeah,
of taking care of yourself, finding internal joy, we were just talking beforehand about the Beyonce album.
love
How
it.
has, right, obsessed. How has your commitment to that work been sustaining you?
Ooh, okay. So context, y'all. Frolic culture. It's interesting when I said I didn't know that you were going to ask me like, how are you feeling, whatever. But in 2020, I started this process of frolicking. I was at a place. I was running a nonprofit. I was the ED. I was like, I gotta go. I was engaged at the time. I gotta go. And it was this like moment in time where I realized I was giving to everything at the expense of myself. And I did some drastic things to change that. But the internal mandate was, how are you going to center rest and play? How are you going to prioritize this in your life first and then build everything else around it? And it saved me. The process of like saying no, the process of I'm going to be a hermit in this moment, the process of I'm not going to give to you because I don't have it to give to myself. And I danced a lot and I rested a lot and I got missing a lot, all of the things that are rest and play for me. And that I think is one of the reasons why 2021 felt so full and felt so optimistic and felt so full of possibilities, because I was on a serious energy budget and I chose myself over everything. And it gave me life to say and reminded me of when we make these transformations in ourselves, how they touch other people. Because I noticed my friend circle, my family, people were like, oh, I'm frolicking. Oh, I'm whatever. I'm resting. I'm playing. And I saw the energy around me start to shift, which is why, I launched publicly in 2021. And being back in this place in 2022, it's been beautiful. It's been beautiful to do. We've done a couple of external events that were very, very safe and small. We did like a 90s Juneteenth dinner party, and we just supported the Defend Black Women March here in DC 2 days ago. But what it reminds me over and over again is that, to what I alluded to earlier, I think a lot of us are in a place where we're waiting on our culture, on our society to get better. But one of the things that, in my opinion, white supremacy has done to us is this like separation of the power of ourself and of our choice, and a realization that we actively create culture every day. So frolic culture is saying, if we create a society where we decide to center rest and play, that in itself is divesting from white supremacy and its culture and its system of oppression, and slowly reclaiming our wholeness and humanity. And it's true, because the more we wait, the more what is happening will be replicated and reinforced. The power, the change is in our choice to say, I'm going to divest from this version of capitalism today by not pushing myself beyond what I have and giving what I have and putting me first. So I think that was a long-winded answer to say where I am in the work is it's equally frustrating, but sustaining me at the same time. Like this mandate that I'm calling for other people. I'm not this like person who has it all figured out and is like, my life is just full of rest and play. I have to make daily decisions to choose myself in spite of all the other things that I'm juggling, and in the increasingly tough world that we're living in.
Yeah. When you were talking, this is making me think about, I'm wondering if, as a high achieving Black woman, like I think so many Black women who take pride in their accomplishments and having it together and getting things done, I feel like when you do decide to step back or make different decisions or prioritize self-actualization and self-care, like there can be a feeling of shame, like you've let people down. Did you deal with that at all?
Ooh, as always, you're always on beat. You know those memes like, when you're always on beat, you're always on beat. Interestingly enough, this past weekend, like I said, there was the second annual Defend Black Women March, and there was a panel on pleasure for Black women that was revolutionary. And one of the things, of course, the song by Beyonce, Church Girl, came up. I'm a PK. We all talked about that. But one of the things that all of the presenters talked about was shame, and how shame is such a barrier to our pleasure and to the highest versions of ourselves. So thinking about that, why it's fresh in mind, absolutely, there was a lot of shame. I think about your video of, the one that you just released around the biggest compliments we get as women is when, we're in a relationship and don't let us be engaged and don't let us, have a marriage. That was my experience. I felt so much shame of saying, I'm not going to marry this person, not even because of my own wants and desires, but the standards that were projected onto me. I will never forget. Thank God, the pandemic saved me in so many ways. But I remember calling people because, I had to let people know, like, yo, this is what happened, whatever. And this person was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I was like, sorry for who? I never said I was sad. I never said I was sorry. And I challenged her. I'm like, well, you're projecting that onto me. And that, I think, is a situation that a lot of Black women are in when we make that decision. The shame of, my parents did X, Y, and Z for me to get here. My ancestors did X, Y, and Z for me to do this. How dare I not, whatever. Society says this. I got these different degrees. There's so much shame. But from what I found, that shame wasn't my internal shame. The shame was things that were projected onto me. And even though it was something tough and I had to navigate through, at the end of the day, when I was doing what was right for me, and that was slowing down and shifting my career and doing things differently, I was able to show up more wholly, more happily. And I was fine with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Something else that's coming up for me here is I love the idea of rejecting the shame that other people try to project onto you. I think, first of all, that's hard as fuck, like really hard, but also like a really liberating thought. I'm also thinking about how for so many of us, we build up this idea of who we are. We root our identities in achievements and accomplishments, and I'm the most dependable person. And then when you decide to make new choices or prioritize new things, then you have to come up with a new identity. And
Yes.
so, like, what has that process of I was that person, but now I'm this person? How has that been like?
Ooh. This is such a juicy question. For me, what's coming up is, you're right. Our identities are constructed by a lot of things. And I would invite us to consider the structures and who the identities that we've constructed, who does that serve?
Mhm.
Who does it serve for you to be an independent Black woman? Who does it serve for you to be a strong Black woman? Because most of that shit don't serve us. They're manifestations of colonization, it's manifestations of slavery, it's manifestations of capitalism, particularly, that tells us that we're only worthy by our labor. And we know that we pop and we fly. We know that we're all of these things outside of what we produce. Like I say all the time, you're worthy because you are. And for me, I'm still on the journey of reinventing myself, in the sense of being cool with the highest version of me that's emerging, that is not in line with what people know about me. And it's interesting because I believe that in our life, we have the same patterns over and over and over. And you move into a different level when you finally learn the lesson. And one of the patterns that have been in my life, I've worked in every industry except for corporate. I've moved abroad. When people were, in the popping phase, I dipped and I was abroad for almost 2 years. I've lived a very eclectic life. I was a partner of an entertainment company for 15 years, but no one knew. And I just emceed the march this weekend, and people were like, "Why does it sound like you're on the radio?" I'm like, "I've lived multiple lives," and I bring that up to say, as I'm reinventing myself, what is the through line that I'm seeing now is that the core of me has always been, now I'm saying, the frolic facilitator. Yeah. My entire life, regardless of the roles that I had, regardless of the work that I was doing, at the core, it was, how can I cultivate spaces for people to be seen and be whole? And that may be too woo-woo for people who know me when my super, super, campaign political life. That may be too whatever for people who knew me in my professor life. But at the end of the day, what I'm learning is, regardless of how it makes other people feel, if it aligns with me and it's good with me, I'm just going to do that. So it's definitely been tough. I'm an entrepreneur. I work for myself. I still have to work. So I'm an equity strategist. So there's this tug of like, I have to stay what's the word? Smart
Yeah.
enough to make
Yeah.
sure I still get my contracts because I need that while trying to still lean into the fullest version of myself. And that is definitely tough. But the interesting thing that I've learned is the more that I show more of myself, the more that it challenges other people to show more of themselves and to like check their shit. So for example, I posted a picture in my story of me twerking. And I did this thing for my therapist who told me, she's like, well, why do you have, because I blocked some of my clients on my stories. Y'all know what it is. Especially the non-pigmented clients. I'm like, y'all don't need to see all my shit. And she's like, well, why do you do that? Like, what are you perpetuating by hiding this part of yourself? She dragged me. And I was like, fair. I'm going to let these motherfuckers see all of it. And I was twerking on my stories because I'll help you out, Kim. I know you're working on that. I'm from Miami. Okay, I got you. So I was twerking on my stories or whatever. And one of my clients were like, oh, well, like, don't you think this is unprofessional? Like, no one's going to take you seriously. And I said to her, I said, why do I want to be taken seriously?
Yeah.
I want to be experienced joyfully.
Yeah.
I want to be experienced wholly. And from that, in a moment where I was like, oh my God, I'll lose a client. She called me and she was like, oh shit. I never even thought about it. So I say all that to say it's tough and it's something I'm still navigating, but I'm finding that it's more harmful to me to not show up as my full self and just
Yeah.
go in the world than it is to continue to play by whatever these people want me to be.
Yeah. I feel yes. And I'm trying to find a balance, right? Because I feel like I have benefited enormously from being very serious feminist Kimberly for the first, I don't know, 7, 8 years, and like dedicating wholly to theory and very serious critical analysis, and
Mhm.
not diving too deep into like insane Kimberly. Oh, that's ableist. Not diving too deep into Kimberly, who is just does whatever the fuck she wants to do. And so when people are asking me for advice, specifically young women, I have to be honest about the
Mm.
fact that I do feel like it helps that I have that foundation.
Yeah.
And that then you have that foundation. And now I'm at a point where it's like, you're just going to get it, like, however I
Yeah.
appear. And that does help people connect more deeply. But I'm also like, but you don't have to be as constrained as that. Like, I felt so self-conscious about
Mhm.
everything all the time, and everything was so
Yes.
intentional about brand building, and is this going to be the smart thing, and then this leads to that, like,
Mhm.
certainly you can consider some stuff, but you definitely, young women definitely have more space and freedom.
Yeah.
And also I think like to be more multifaceted. Like I
Yeah.
don't think it has to be all about, serious professional. I think that especially it's like an older, I don't know, am I older? Like, I don't know. As a person who's been doing this for a long time, like I definitely take into account, like, yes, you can be super serious, thoughtful person
Yeah.
and twerking person. Those things can coexist. And I know that you're smart enough to like show up in this space or wherever, like being who you need, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm flexible, I'm fluid. Like sometimes it's serious academic person, and then sometimes it's crazy unhinged person. And I just make the choice, like it's same person, but
Yeah.
like whatever is most appropriate in like this setting, like that's how I'm gonna show up. And if you're coming to my space, then it's gonna be all together.
I hear that, and I appreciate you acknowledging, like, one of the things that really pisses me off is all of these people who built a platform on a certain thing, and then they switch it up,
Yeah.
without acknowledging, like, well, you got here by doing that. So I
Yeah.
really, really, really appreciate that because I, like you, especially, I've done some, okay, I was student body president, and you know that life. When I tell you, I was so regimented. I was
Yeah.
so scrutinized from a very young age. So I was hyper aware. I told you I'm a pastor's kid, all of that. And I now see how that has hindered me on things like social media. I could have had a big fire. I could have did all the things that I've done, but I was so concerned about how people would see me and if they would take me seriously and if they saw this thing. So I agree. I lived a lot of my career like that. And I would say what I've learned from watching people younger than me is fuck that shit.
Yeah.
Honestly. I've modeled them in the sense of they're showing up as their full, like, even even a shirt like this, and I knew I was gonna be recorded, I would never. Okay.
Yeah.
Showing some tit, I would never, honey. And now I'm feeling more inspired by them to show up
Yeah.
more fully. And the question that I ask myself is, if you don't want to post something, or if you don't want to do something, or if you don't want to show this side of yourself for you, cool. But if I'm not doing it because of what I'm scared that someone
Yeah.
will say or experience, then I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And I think there's a way for us to hold the nuances to say everybody can't get everything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like, I'm not going to sacrifice my highest self for you,
Mhm.
and I know it's different for everyone, but I do think regardless of where we are on our journey, we have to ask that, because if we're doing it for the latter point, because of, oh, well, a such and such isn't supposed to do this, or ED is not supposed to do this, or a program
Mhm.
manager is not supposed to do this, we are perpetuating that same
Yeah.
rigid box. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is the value of intergenerational exchange. I think,
Yeah.
wisdom and learning doesn't just happen one way. And yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes, I see the girls do things, and my first reaction is, that's a choice.
Okay, okay,
That's
okay.
a choice.
Listen,
But then
listen.
I had to be like, okay, wait, what's happening here? What are their aims? Are they accomplishing their aims by doing
Yep,
this? Okay. And their aims are completely separate than my feelings about it. And
yep.
so
Like
I'm just
Chloe,
like,
like your full analysis with Chloe.
yeah, like, okay, like
Yes.
I'm taking it in. It's
Yep,
not for me.
yep.
Okay. And I'm acknowledging that this is you. But also, yes, I am learning to be like, okay, well, that is something maybe I need to incorporate more of that as well. And
Mhm.
also, just because it makes you feel feelings does not mean it's wrong. Does
Okay.
not, right? Like those are just your feelings, and you just have to process your feelings. That's your problem, not their problem.
Period. And that's hella important, because one of the things that we do, and this is how systems of oppression keep going, is that we internally police ourselves, and then we begin to police other people.
Yeah.
So let's, like, if we're in a job interview, right? And maybe you're a Instagram star, for your little cute little fits, and you come into my office to hire a job, and I'm like, oh no, you can't do the job because you were doing such and such and such.
Right.
And I think it's important what you're saying around interrogating to say that's not it for me, but like, if fam loves it, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And being an observer of those thoughts, because, and this for me, why it goes back to personal choice and really for yourself prioritizing rest and play and understanding your capacity and joy. Because if we don't do that internal work for ourselves, we're going to push on our shame,
Yeah.
our boxes, our standards, our whatever onto other people. And that's how this fucked up shit keeps going.
You mentioned how showing your full self has helped other people
Mhm.
discover things about themselves. I get that feedback as well. Do you feel like by veering more into being freer, showing more of yourself, not self policing and self censoring, that you've unlocked new things about yourself that old CiCi never knew or refused to acknowledge, or just like has just sprung up?
You know what's so funny about this? I think that we all know who the hell we are. We're just socialized out of that knowing.
Mm,
Because when I think of the highest version of myself, it's actually like the 4-year-old, 2-year-old version of myself. Like when I ask my
mm,
mom and I look at little pictures of myself, there are pictures of me on top of the like picnic tables dancing, pointing at people, telling people to dance. Like since I was 2 and 4, I would ask stories to my mom, and she's like, yeah, like we would go somewhere and we would get a whole bunch of free stuff because you would be going around talking to people about their life and how they're great and they should be. This is 2 and 4-year-old version of me, right? So no, I think I'm just remembering. I'm
mm,
remembering. Ah, you do like that. you didn't like that. It's a process, and this for me is why rest. It's frolicking is not just play, play, play. It's also rest. When you pause enough and you sit with yourself, you can remember. It's not really about learning. It's really about, am I tuned in enough? And am I in a place of, is my nervous system calm enough for me to remember what I like and what I don't like? Fun story. Last relationship, when that ended and I was spinning around my apartment and I looked at myself and I was like, when was the last time you danced? I used to dance professionally. The people who know me, if they would have known there was an extended amount of time where I wasn't doing a cartwheel or dancing somewhere, people would be like, there is something wrong with you. Right. And it's not in this process. I'm just like, oh yeah, you do like that. Oh yeah, you don't like that. Oh yeah, you should do more of that. And it's just, I'm observing my remembering more intentionally. And I think a lot of us do that. I think a lot of us have points of, oh yeah, I forgot, but we just keep going. Like, oh yeah, I forgot I like to double dutch. Oh, I'm too old for that. Like we self-police ourselves out of our frolic all the time.
Oh my goodness. Yes, this is making me think about why I love being an aunt so much.
Okay, tell me.
Anybody who follows me knows that I'm committed to being the greatest aunt in the world. And that shocked me because I never liked kids and I don't want to have kids. But there is something so freeing about being with my nieces and their exuberance about experiencing life and taking in all of these new ideas and new activities and just being completely immersed in it, just like throwing themselves in it head on, that unlocks in me the freedom to like, yes, like we're in it, like let's have fun, let's do it. Who cares about being cute? Like let's just play and roll around on the floor. And people who know me know like you're doing what? Like you're not that. And I'm like, but I am that. Like, come on. And so, yes, it has connected me to, I don't know, it's cliche to be like inner child, but like a freedom, a carefreeness, and a shamelessness that I'm not sure without being connected to like two little girls who like don't have all of this baggage. I'm not sure I would have been able to tap into that by myself.
That's a word right there. And I think that speaks to what you were talking about of how you showing up as your full self inspires someone else. And me showing as my full self, it reminds you, it pushes you into remembering. Because most of the things that we do is because of socialization and we're not even aware of it. The way we dress, the way we talk, the way we eat, someone taught us that. It may not even be what we like. And have we given ourselves permission, the time to be, to rest, to play, to see, to figure it out? Like to your point, if you ask people, I have a homie, this is so funny how life changes. He's traveled way more than me. You would have never thought, okay? Our lives are so similar, but we were the wildest when we were little kids, okay? I used to make him and my other childhood best friend climb on the top of houses and play Barbie dolls. I used to make them climb up the top of the trees with me. I've always loved being outside. If you asked me 5 years ago, when was the last time you camped, CiCi? When was the last time you went for a walk outside, CiCi? Well, I don't like to walk. Who told you that? You don't? You don't like to be outside? I love being outside. Like, where did this come from? And sometimes we can't pinpoint it because sometimes it's a rude teacher or a bully in our house or whatever, or things that we saw on TV, or the different ways we saw people being reprimanded, even outside of us, that's not acceptable. We've been socialized in dropping pieces of our humanity. And that's why for me, frolic culture is like my own personal mandate and an invitation, particularly to Black women. Find it. You deserve it. Like it literally is our birthright to frolic. Our ancestors did all this shit. Black women, our ancestors did everything required if work was required. It is our birthright to reclaim all the ways that we love to be. We deserve it.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm thinking about how has this changed your friendships?
Oh, that's such a great question. If you would have asked me this question maybe 6 months ago, I would have started to cry in not a good way. It has deepened some of my friendships, like deeply, because either I've inspired their journey or they've inspired my journey or we've decided to do this journey together. I literally have a group text of people that I'm like, yo, what's our frolic plan for the week? Like, what y'all doing? How y'all prioritizing yourself? Which has been a beautiful thing. But it also has distanced me from people that I was once very close with, because when you make a commitment to prioritize your rest and play, that means that you can't overextend in the same way. And as someone who is a recovering people pleaser, who doesn't present like a people pleaser, but I am, as someone who love was modeled for me, particularly from my mother, as you give at the expense of yourself, I had to stop that to have the capacity to rest, to have the energy to play. I had to stop showing up at the expense of myself in certain relationships. I had to hold boundaries in some of my relationships. I had to say, like, you don't actually feel good. I don't feel restful, easeful, playful with you, actually. So it's been tough. I'm not going to lie to you. So it's been beautiful. I'm holding space for both. And, it's been beautiful and deepened and recommitted most of my relationships. But there have been some that we're not in community right now. And I'm hopeful that, of course, time and things will circle back. But I'm okay. I'm well with that.
Yeah, it's so fascinating how we can become comfortable in our anxieties, comfortable feeling anxious around people. I haven't necessarily felt that in friendships, but I've definitely dated people where I felt like every time I see this person, every time we're together, every time we talk, like I am anxious. Like I do not feel good, but why am I still here? Why are we still showing up that way? And it's like, am I thinking it's going to get better, or am I thinking they're going to make a change? And then of course you have to talk to my therapist about it. And she's like, it's not a match. Like, like, okay, like it's obviously not, like, make a different choice. It's like, you're right, it's not. Okay, thanks. Got it. And I think, yes, for friends, for lovers, even sometimes for family members, like, it's not a match. So we're gonna have to make a different choice for self-preservation. Sure.
Yeah. It also, I just had that experience where, because not sometimes, my optimism can become delusion in the sense where I rationalize myself out of knowing. So there was someone that I dated recently, and I saw him recently, and the same thing. I felt my body like tense up. And instead of rationalizing myself out of that, I made a note in my phone. I'm like, remember how you feel. So the next time when this person call you, you remember that this is not easeful. Okay. This is not restful. Okay. And no amount of play is worth the recruit time it's going to take you to get back to homeostasis from being on this like anxious state for so long. So all of that. And I also think it's important for us to really take inventory again of the things that inhibit our ability to rest and inhibit our ability to play. And the scary thing, a lot of the times it's ourselves. Again, it's a lot of internal policing from what we've, taken in from systems of oppression. But it's a lot of times the people that are close to us. And that's the scary thing, to say, hey, I can't actually show up for you like this. Or prime example, I have someone in my life that I deeply love, but their presence is draining to me. It helped me realize that people around me, because I have a lot of energy and I'm usually happy, actually are leeches. It's not their attention, but they're coming around me to get a fill up, to get that, that little blah, blah. And then I'm left with nothing. It's not their intention, but that's the reality of the situation. So now it's not saying that I don't love them or they're harmful necessarily, but I'm not going to spend one-on-one time with you anymore.
Yeah.
Because that's when we're going to do something where the intention is outward. So you can get your energy from a plethora of things and not just me. When we take real inventory on like, what are the things that are getting in the way of my frolic? It's not saying that you got to cut everybody off, but if you listen, you have the opportunity to kind of course correct and shift a little things.
Yeah. Do you think that getting older And not that I'm calling you old, I'm getting older too. That getting older makes you reassess how you're spending your time, where you're putting your energy. I think that sometimes I look back on like 16-year-old Kimberly, because when you're dating people, you want to go through the Facebook photos and like, oh, this was me in high school and whatever. And I look back on 16 and 17-year-old Kimberly and I'm like, that was yesterday. like this
Mhm,
is crazy. And it makes you
mhm,
think, oh, okay, well, I need to be so intentional. Like if that was yesterday, then 60 is going to be tomorrow. And so I need to be so intentional about where I'm putting my energy.
I think I don't know if it's an age thing. I feel like it's more of an awareness thing, an
Yeah.
experience thing, which can definitely come with age. For me, it's been a journey of self-love more so than age,
Hmm.
because I can think about the times where I really valued myself and I was just as intentional,
Yeah.
and the times where I was looking for validation outside myself and I was all willy-nilly.
Yeah.
So, for me, it's, and I'm someone who is extremely cerebral. I process everything here. It's been a process of intentional connecting my mind and my body and sitting in things to be radically honest with myself, to say, you don't deserve this shit.
Yeah.
And then saying that over and over and over and actually believing it, that then pushes me to say, I understand you love them, you want to show up for them, but is it worth the 4 days of recouping that you're going to have to do emotionally from after spending this time with them? You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that mind body thing is so it. When was it? Maybe a week or two ago, a couple of weeks ago, I got a tarot reading. And one thing that she was saying to me is like, you're so cerebral, you're thinking all the time, you don't want to make the wrong choice. But what's happening in your soul? Like what's happening in your solar plexus? Like what's happening,
Mhm.
like your body, we need to be paying more attention to those visceral reactions, like those natural
Yeah,
instincts instead of trying to reason yourself out of them. And I thought,
yeah,
yeah, but how do you do that? Right? Like I get ya. I understand what you're saying. And yes, I do think every single thing through. But I think it's hard when you have been taught to distrust your body, to distrust
yeah,
your natural instincts. Yeah.
yeah. And my question, because I talk to myself in reflection questions, is who taught you that?
Yeah.
And who does that serve? And I think it's really powerful that you're on a twerking journey, because your solar plexus and your sacral chakra, it's all in there. And I will be really fascinated to see, as your twerk gets more mean, how freer you feel. I'm very serious, because when we think about the things that have been socially demonized, or they're a faux pas, I find are actually tools to our liberation.
Yeah.
When I twerk, when I'm popping, when I'm doing my little whatever, I actually feel myself.
Yeah.
And who does it serve to really feel myself? It serves
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the power of play. I say play is the practice of abundance. It's not there, you can't really whatever, but it's an opportunity to try it on. And I think that we can find some of those things if we just allow ourselves to explore more. And how, like, just sitting with yourself. And for me, dance is what it is, but I also find the stillness the best connection of mind and body. So
Mhm.
it's like, when I have a thought, I'm like, okay, I keep that thought and I'm like, well, where do you feel this thought? And I know that sounds really woo woo, but sometimes I feel my thoughts in my gut. I feel
Yeah.
it in my stomach. Like, this nigga ain't shit. That usually I feel that in my core. Okay. Sometimes the thought is in my throat and I'm like, you're a little choked up about this.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel it in my shoulders. So it's not saying that don't discredit the thought, but I
Yeah.
ask myself, well, where are you feeling this? And sit with that too.
Yeah. I think that is so it. And even giving myself time and space to be bored. I think that
Ooh.
I'm addicted to screens and laptop and, just constant interaction, constant stimulation. And
Mm.
being more intentional about let's just sit, okay, let's just sit. Even I went to the pool the other day and I was like, oh, I can't forget my phone, like and it's actually no, let's just sit and be outside And I was like, and honestly, at first 15 minutes, I was like, what am I doing? Like, this sucks so bad. And then you sink into
Go
it,
into
and I'm
it.
thinking about things and thinking about the future and
Yes,
coming up with ideas. And it's
yes,
that overstimulation is actually, we think that it is improving and like teaching us and showing us, but it's actually like dampening your ability to like process and analyze.
yeah, and to remember.
Yeah.
I realized I was always looking for a book, reading an article to affirm shit that I already knew.
Yeah.
Like, girl, if you just sit with yourself for a second, you could, And it's to your point of ideas or whatever, you already knew.
Yeah.
Rest allows us to remember. And our society, specifically, because we know this cis heteropatriarchy, all the shit, we can name them, tells us that we are less than. And the only way to be better is outside of us, is outside of our being. So we do have to embrace it. We just got to sit with the shit. I know now my things now, like my mama, I never thought I was going to be like a 72-year-old lady. I go for hour walks, girl.
Yeah.
And in that walk, I listen to Beyonce, of course. Like that's like but just I can't scroll as I'm walking when you're power walking with your arms,
Yeah.
you can't really do much. And it allows me to just cleanse, to sort sometimes. I find sometimes my brain latches onto something that I was really upset about, and I'm able to see it from different angles and move on in a walk. And imagine how much of our freedom we could find if we just set our ass down.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think, I always have to acknowledge that I feel incredibly privileged to be able to make the choice to just sit and think whenever, because
Yeah.
you do have to have some breathing room.
Yeah.
But for people who can literally afford it, who literally have time and space to be able to just sit and think, I think the past month it really has improved my not even just life, like mental health, but like even my physical health. Like I feel, I don't know, just more lighter, more unburdened, clearer. And I'm like, wow, like there are people who literally don't even have 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes to just like sit with themselves.
Agreed. I think a lot about, yes, affirm that, definitely have privilege to do it. There's two pieces that my mind went to is some of us who have the privilege to sit don't give ourselves permission to do that.
Yeah.
So just want to name that. And I find that when we don't give ourselves, people who have privilege give themselves permission to slow down, we then hold people to the same busy standard, which inhibits less privileged people from slowing down. If you have a boss that takes a month vacation and they be like, don't fucking call me, I'm dead, y'all good, it gives you permission to take your vacation and say, I'm dead.
Yeah.
And that's the part I don't, when we talk about culture, the culture that we're creating and how I believe like our culture is a product of our individual choices and then how they magnify and compound and all of these things is if CiCi doesn't value and understand the necessity of rest, the necessity of play, then everybody around me is going to know that that's a standard. And depending on my positionality, my privilege, whatever, how does that impact those around me?
Yeah, this is really making me think. I am in a very high productivity mode right now. Things need to get done, but also, I'm not a micromanager, right? I'm like, okay, like these are the goals and this needs to get done, but I'm like, just whenever you want, like, like just keep in mind. And I'm trying to really be the type of manager that I would want to have, which is y'all are capable. You're here because I trust you. You do good work. And like, I trust that like you're going to make the right decisions because I'm going to make the right decisions for me. And I don't want anybody breathing down my neck. And if you need some time, let me know. And if you need this. And I think that it's so easy, like, you brought up the capitalism thing. It is so easy with the desire for more money, but also because as a content creator, like the pressure to churn. And I don't want to, I do feel that pressure. I'm going to be honest with you, but I don't want to be like boss from hell, like, and make the people who work with and for me like feel like I'm okay. I would rather like take on that. Maybe this is trauma, but I would rather like internalize that than them internalize that. Like I still want you to have a great life, and I'll just like take it on.
I feel that deeply. And I appreciate you reflecting like it's hard and they're real things.
Yeah.
I should say, like, I am an equity coach and I work with overachieving, whatever. Most of them are Black women. And we have conversations about this all the time. It's like where is the balance? How do
Yeah.
I, survive in my industry because I still need to make money, but how do I not perpetuate harm?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times we get to a conversation of these standards that you are holding yourself to, are they real?
Yeah. Ooh.
Are they real? Because, and it's not to say that they're wrong, but my
Uh-huh.
question is, are they real? Because the expectation that we put on content creators also comes from other content creators.
Mm-hmm.
And if there was a different flow that had similar engagement, that
Yeah.
had similar hits, would that actually hurt your business? You get what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
not an either or, but
Yeah.
it's just an example of how when we don't have time to pause and be and interrogate our choices, in my opinion, have someone to support us and talk us through that and pause and ask questions, what we will do is we're going to reinforce what is. We're going to
Yeah.
tell ourselves the cycle of the story that we've been told, that we've been taught, that has worked for us, privilege, that has worked for us in the past. We're going to continue to do it. I find the exact same thing. Like I had a whole freak out. This was like 2 weeks ago. Oh my God, contracts. Oh my God, like, I gotta have Q1 already lined up and what am I gonna do? And I said, well, why do you have to have Q1 lined up right now? Who told you that? I said, okay, well, like, okay, are you okay to pay your bills and support the people that you need to support by this date? Yes. What's the date? Is that date Q1? So what you created this whole freak
Yeah.
out. Let's walk this back. So and I hope that you experience what I'm saying as an offering. It's not
Yeah.
a
No. This is good. This is good.
you whatever. It's the reality of the culture that we've been socialized in, how we perpetuate that, and how there's an opportunity for us to divest and course correct.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, this is useful. All right, let's end it there. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. Where can people find you on the internet?
Okay, I'm on the internet, the CiCi battle on Twitter sometimes. I'm more active on Instagram, but more importantly, follow the frolic culture. Again, it is a movement to create a society where we prioritize rest and play as a way to divest from white supremacy and reclaim our wholeness and humanity. Would love to have y'all, would love to give y'all tips and tricks, and let's be in community.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Hit me up on Instagram or Twitter, and be sure to hit up CiCi. That's it. See you next time. Bye.